Bizarre, unusual, and outright shocking. The hygiene practices of the Middle Ages were far from what we understand and accept today. This journey through the unusual rituals and habits of medieval times will provide a fascinating glimpse into the past, bringing the somewhat grotesque yet intriguing methods of maintaining cleanliness to light. Number 1. Bloodletting as a hygiene practice. In the epoch of the Middle Ages, a common practice for maintaining health and hygiene was bloodletting. Based on the ancient medical theory of humors, the concept revolved around the belief that the human body contained 4 humors: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. A balance among these humors was thought to be essential for good health, and any disruption to this balance could lead to illness. When an individual was sick or felt unwell, it was assumed that one of these humors was in excess. Bloodletting was thus used to restore this balance, especially when there was an apparent excess of blood. The process was fairly rudimentary by modern standards. It involved making incisions on specific points of the body and allowing the blood to drain out, often using leeches for the purpose. This was conducted in a variety of settings, from monasteries and public squares to the homes of the sick. The barber surgeons, as they were known due to their dual roles as hair groomers and medical practitioners, carried out these procedures. They were equipped with a range of tools, including lancets, scarificators, and fleams, designed to puncture the skin and veins. However, bloodletting was not without risks. It could lead to severe weakness, anemia, and even death due to excessive blood loss. It was not uncommon for patients to faint during the process, and infection at the site of incision was a constant threat. The efficacy of the practice remained unquestioned for centuries, and it was only in the late 19th century that it started to lose favor as medical science advanced and the theory of humors was debunked. Bloodletting as a hygiene practice in the Middle Ages was a mix of medical practice, superstition, and ritual. It reflects the understanding and beliefs about health and hygiene during this period, as bizarre as they may seem to us now. Today, it serves as a fascinating historical example of how societies have navigated the complex concept of hygiene throughout human history. Number 2. Public bathhouses and communal washing. In the Middle Ages, bathing was a public, social affair, primarily carried out in communal bathhouses. Public bathhouses were widespread across Europe, serving as important social hubs where people of all classes came to cleanse, relax, and socialize. These establishments were more than just places for hygiene. They were essentially the leisure centers of the time, equipped with warm baths, steam rooms, and sometimes even providing food and drinks. The process of bathing was relatively straightforward. People would undress, keep their belongings in a designated area, and then proceed to the bathing area where large tubs of heated water were prepared. Often, these baths would be filled with herbs and flowers to add fragrance to the water. People bathed together irrespective of their social status and enjoyed the warmth and steam. In some cultures, special bath attendants would help bathers by scrubbing their backs and offering massages. However, as inviting as it may sound, these public bathhouses were not without their drawbacks. The water was not frequently changed and was used by many before it was finally replaced. As a result, the water quickly became dirty, making it a breeding ground for bacteria and disease. Unfortunately, with the onset of the plague and the rise of the church's influence, public bathing was associated with immorality and disease. Many bathhouses were closed, and the act of bathing itself became less frequent, replaced by the practice of washing only the visible parts of the body, such as the hands, face, and neck. Number 3. Using urine for laundry. One of the more shocking hygiene practices of the Middle Ages was the use of urine for laundry. Urine, primarily due to its ammonia content, was a popular choice for bleaching and washing clothes. The alkaline properties of ammonia acted as a powerful cleaning agent, helping to remove stains and dirt from fabrics. Families would collect urine in pots and leave it to stand until it reached the right potency. It was then mixed with water, and clothes were soaked in this solution before being vigorously scrubbed and wrung out. In many towns and cities, there were even public urine collection areas where individuals could deposit their contributions to the communal laundry efforts. Cloth manufacturers also used urine as a part of their textile production process. Woolen fabrics were soaked in urine to soften and clean the fibers before dyeing. The ammonia in urine also helped to set certain dyes, improving the color quality of the cloth. While it might seem gross and unhygienic to us today, the use of urine for laundry was a pragmatic solution for the people of the Middle Ages. It was a readily available resource that offered an effective means of keeping clothes clean. However, it does underscore the stark contrast between the hygiene standards of that time and those of the modern world. Number 4. Lack of dental care and toothpaste substitutes. Dental care in the Middle Ages was significantly lacking when compared to modern standards. There were no trained dentists, and oral health knowledge was rudimentary at best. Instead, people relied on barber surgeons for more severe oral health issues, such as tooth extraction. However, despite this lack of formal care, people did make some attempts to keep their teeth clean. The primary method of cleaning teeth involved the use of a cloth and water, and sometimes salt. In the absence of toothbrushes, people would rub this cloth against their teeth to remove food particles and plaque. Some people would also chew on certain types of sticks or twigs with a frayed end to clean their teeth, a rudimentary form of the toothbrush. One of the more unusual substitutes for toothpaste was the use of ashes. Specifically, the ashes of burnt herbs, burnt bread, and even burnt mouse heads were used to clean teeth. These ashes, it was believed, had abrasive properties that could help remove the grime and plaque buildup on teeth. Furthermore, powders made from the bones of certain animals were also used as a form of toothpaste. It's noteworthy that despite the crude nature of these substances, they might have had a certain degree of effectiveness due to their abrasive quality, enabling the removal of dental plaque. Number 5. The absence of toilet video. When it comes to bathroom hygiene, the Middle Ages had quite different practices from today. The concept of toilet video was non-existent, and people had to resort to various alternatives for personal cleaning after using the toilet. One of the most common materials used for this purpose was simply water and the left hand, which is why the right hand was preferred for greeting and eating. Apart from water, other materials like hay, moss, and leaves were also commonly used. In wealthier households, old rags, wool, or even hemp was used for cleaning. These materials were usually soaked in water or vinegar for additional cleanliness. A more comfortable, albeit luxurious option was a sponge attached to a stick, often soaked in brine or vinegar. This device, known as a xylospongium, was shared among users and rinsed in a bucket of salt water or vinegar after each use. In communal toilet settings, such as monasteries or castles, a communal cloth, known as a gomph stick, was sometimes used. The stick, with a cloth attached to its end, was placed in a central location, accessible to all who used the facility. While these practices may seem unhygienic by modern standards, they were commonplace and accepted during the Middle Ages. These methods underscore the fact that societies adapt to the resources they have at hand, and as bizarre as these practices might seem to us now, they were considered normal and effective at the time. Number 6. The plague doctor's outfit. The outfit of the plague doctor is one of the most iconic and eerie symbols of the Middle Ages, especially related to hygiene and disease. This unique ensemble was designed as a means of protection for those doctors brave or desperate enough to treat patients during the outbreaks of the bubonic plague, also known as the Black Death. The plague doctor's outfit was designed to cover every inch of the body. It included a waxed overcoat, leather gloves, boots, and a wide-brimmed hat. The most distinctive feature, however, was the mask. Resembling a bird's beak, this mask was designed to hold aromatic substances and straw that were believed to purify the air the doctor breathed, thereby protecting them from the miasma, or bad air, they thought was responsible for spreading the disease. The beak-like mask was filled with substances like cloves, myrrh, rose petals, or camphor, thought to ward off the plague. The eyes of the mask were covered with glass, and the entire ensemble was topped with a wide-brimmed hat, symbolizing their medical profession. As unsettling as it may appear, the plague doctor's outfit represents an early attempt at creating personal protective equipment. Although their understanding of disease transmission was flawed, the outfit might have provided some protection by sheer virtue of keeping the doctors physically distanced and separated from the patients. Number 7. Groom of the stool. a royal hygiene job. The groom of the stool was a unique and surprisingly prestigious role within the English royal court during the Middle Ages. This position involved attending to the king's natural bodily functions and maintaining his personal hygiene. Although it might seem distasteful by modern standards, it was a highly coveted job due to the intimate access to the monarch it provided. The groom of the stool, named after the stool that served as a portable toilet, was responsible for assisting the king in the privy. His duties included providing water for the king's hands before and after meals, helping him dress and undress, and taking care of the royal clothes and jewelry. Beyond these duties, the role of the groom of the stool was significant because of the unparalleled personal access to the king. The holder of this position often became a close confidant of the monarch and could exert considerable influence behind the scenes. As such, the role was usually given to a person of high birth, further elevating its status. Despite its unsavory aspects, the position of the groom of the stool highlights how personal hygiene was a communal and, in many ways, a social event during the Middle Ages, even at the highest levels of society. It serves as a reminder of how societal attitudes towards privacy and hygiene have evolved over the centuries. Number 8. Tossing waste out of windows. In the Middle Ages, waste disposal methods were quite different from what we are accustomed to today. One prevalent practice, particularly in crowded urban areas, was the disposal of human waste by tossing it out of windows. The lack of indoor plumbing and sewage systems meant that people had to dispose of their waste somehow, and often, the simplest solution was to throw it onto the streets. Chamber pots filled with urine and feces were emptied out of windows with a warning shout of "Gardez-l'eau," a corruption of the French phrase "Regardez l'eau," which means, "watch out for the water." This warning was supposed to alert passers-by to the imminent danger from above, though it was not always effective, and unfortunate pedestrians would sometimes be the recipients of these unpleasant showers. The waste discarded in this manner would accumulate in the streets, creating a very unhygienic and unsanitary environment. Rain would sometimes wash the waste away, but more often it remained on the streets, leading to an overwhelmingly foul smell and providing a breeding ground for diseases. Number 9. Miasma theory. Bad air causes disease. The miasma theory was a predominant belief during the Middle Ages that proposed that diseases, particularly plague, cholera, and chlamydia, were caused by bad air, or miasma. According to this theory, the foul-smelling air, often associated with rotting organic matter and poor sanitation, carried diseases. This understanding of disease transmission influenced many aspects of medieval life, including hygiene practices. For instance, it led to the belief that strong odors could ward off disease, leading to the use of aromatic herbs and flowers in homes and public spaces. The theory also contributed to the design of the plague doctor's outfit, with its beak-like mask filled with aromatic substances intended to purify the air breathed by the doctor. Similarly, it played a role in the avoidance of bathhouses during plague outbreaks, as they were thought to produce miasmas due to the hot, humid air. The miasma theory remained prevalent until the 19th century, when the germ theory of disease, which correctly posits that specific microorganisms cause diseases, was established. Although it was a flawed theory, it represented a significant effort to scientifically understand and explain the cause of diseases in a time before the discovery of bacteria and viruses. Number 10. Powdered wigs to cover lice infestation. One of the most iconic fashion trends of the Middle Ages, particularly the 17th and 18th centuries, was the powdered wig, also known as a peruke. While today we may associate these wigs with fashion or status, one of their original purposes was a bit less glamorous. They served as a solution to rampant lice infestations. Personal hygiene was not high during this era, and regular bathing was not a common practice, contributing to frequent outbreaks of lice. Lice infestations were not just itchy and uncomfortable, they were also a health hazard, as lice could carry and spread diseases. The solution that many found was to shave their heads and instead wear wigs. The wigs could be deloused more easily by removing them from the head and subjecting them to various treatments like baking in an oven or dousing in a concoction designed to kill the lice. To maintain a fashionable appearance, the wigs were often powdered with a mixture of starch and fragrances to keep them looking white or off-white, a trendy color at the time. Some powders even included lavender or orange to help mask any unpleasant odors. While to us this practice might seem a drastic solution for dealing with lice, in the context of the Middle Ages, it was an ingenious adaptation to a common and irksome problem. Number 11. Using herbs and flowers to mask odors. Given the lack of proper sanitation and the prevalence of open sewers, the Middle Ages was not the most fragrant of times. One way people dealt with the ubiquitous bad smells was by using herbs and flowers to mask them. Herbs with strong scents like rosemary, thyme, and lavender were popular choices. People would strew these herbs on the floors of their homes, and as they were walked upon, they would release their fragrances, masking the less pleasant smells. The use of herbs wasn't limited to homes. They were also used in public spaces like markets and churches. In fact, the practice gave rise to the term strewing herbs. Flowers served a similar purpose. Bouquets of fragrant flowers were carried around, especially by the upper classes, to serve as a kind of medieval air freshener. The bouquet, known as a nosegay or posy, could be held up to the nose to mask the odors of the surrounding environment. Despite their humble nature, herbs and flowers played an essential role in medieval hygiene practices, demonstrating the practical ingenuity of people in the past and their understanding of the plants around them. Number 12. Hygiene during childbirth. During the Middle Ages, childbirth was a perilous event, and maternal and infant mortality rates were high. Many of these deaths could be attributed to the poor understanding of hygiene during childbirth. There were no sterilization practices in place, and midwives often delivered babies with their bare hands without washing them first. The birthing room itself was not kept clean to modern standards either, often containing various animals and many other people. Despite these challenges, there were some attempts at ensuring cleanliness during childbirth. It was common for a woman in labor to be bathed before she gave birth, although the primary intention of this bath was to provide comfort rather than cleanliness. Garlic was often used in birth chambers, as it was believed to offer protection against evil spirits and infections. Similarly, the umbilical cord was often tied off with specially prepared threads, such as those soaked in oil or fat, as a form of rudimentary antisepsis. While these practices might seem rudimentary or ineffective by our standards, they represented an early understanding of the importance of cleanliness in preventing disease and infection. Number 13. Animal dung in medical practices. Another surprising aspect of hygiene in the Middle Ages was the use of animal dung in medical treatments. This unusual ingredient was used in various remedies, believed to have curative properties. Cow dung was frequently used in poultices and salves to treat wounds and burns. The rationale behind this was that the dung would help draw out toxins and heat from the wound. Similarly, pigeon dung was thought to alleviate baldness when mixed with oil and applied to the scalp. Another common belief was that dog dung could cure sore throats and tonsillitis when applied externally to the throat. It was also used in ointments to treat a variety of skin conditions. While these treatments may seem shocking, even revolting to us, it's essential to remember that the understanding of disease and the body's functioning was rudimentary during this period. These treatments were born out of a trial-and-error approach to healing, based on observation and correlation rather than an understanding of biology or pathology. Nonetheless, they serve as a stark reminder of how far medical science and hygiene practices have come over the centuries. Number 14. Fasting for purification. Fasting, the act of abstaining from food and sometimes drink, has been a part of many cultures and religions for millennia. During the Middle Ages, it became an integral part of the Christian religious practices prevalent in Europe, serving not only as a means of demonstrating piety, but also as a method of physical and spiritual purification. Fasting was often associated with the idea of cleansing one's body and soul. The Church prescribed certain fast days throughout the year, the most notable being the period of Lent, the 40 days leading up to Easter. During this time, individuals were encouraged to abstain from certain types of food, typically meat, dairy products, and eggs. This abstention was seen not only as a test of discipline and devotion, but also as a way to purify the body. In addition to these annual fasts, there were weekly fasts as well. Wednesdays and Fridays were typically days of fasting in honor of the betrayal and crucifixion of Jesus. The dietary restrictions on these days were often less stringent than during Lent, but they nonetheless served as regular reminders of one's faith and the importance of spiritual cleanliness. This focus on internal purity as a facet of hygiene was a significant aspect of life during the Middle Ages. While fasting had clear religious connotations, it was also tied to a broader understanding of health and wellness. Medieval medicine frequently emphasized the importance of balance among the body's four humors: black bile, yellow bile, phlegm, and blood. Fasting was seen as a way to restore this balance when it was disrupted, such as after periods of excess. However, the practice was not without its critics, even at the time. Some argued that fasting led to physical weakness and made individuals more susceptible to illness. Others felt that the practice was carried out more for outward show than genuine piety. Regardless of these debates, the act of fasting demonstrates the interconnectedness of spiritual and physical cleanliness in the Middle Ages. Fasting was seen as a tool for maintaining both personal health and moral integrity, a testament to the Hovedioic view of hygiene in this period. While our modern perspective on hygiene focuses primarily on the prevention of disease through cleanliness, the Middle Ages had a broader and more Hovedioic view, incorporating spiritual and moral cleanliness as well. The practice of fasting illustrates this perfectly. Even though it seems removed from our modern understanding of hygiene, it encapsulates the multifaceted approach to cleanliness in the Middle Ages, an approach that considered not just the body, but also the soul. Number 15. Unusual beauty routines as hygiene practices. In the Middle Ages, perceptions of beauty and hygiene were closely intertwined. However, many beauty routines that were considered part of maintaining good hygiene would be viewed as strange or even harmful by today's standards. These practices provide fascinating insights into societal standards of cleanliness and beauty during this period. One popular beauty regimen among women was the use of lead-based cosmetics. White skin was highly prized as a sign of beauty and purity, as well as a marker of wealth, indicating that one did not need to labor outdoors. Women would apply a mixture known as Venetian ceruse, made from white lead and vinegar, to their faces to achieve a fashionable pale complexion. Notably, Queen Elizabeth I of England was known for her use of this cosmetic, leading to the term the Elizabethan look. Another unusual hygiene practice was the use of small, scented bags known as pomanders. These were worn around the neck or waist and were filled with aromatic herbs and spices, such as cloves, lavender, or nutmeg. The purpose of the pomander was to mask any unpleasant body odors, as regular bathing was not a common practice during this period. The scent of the pomander was also thought to purify the air around the wearer and protect against disease. Hair removal was another prevalent beauty routine, especially among women. It was not only the hair on the head that received attention. Medieval beauty standards considered a high forehead desirable, leading many women to pluck or shave their hairlines to create the illusion of a higher, broader forehead. Eyebrow shaping was common as well, with thin, arched eyebrows considered the height of beauty. Oral hygiene was also an important part of medieval beauty routines. Tooth care was rudimentary by modern standards, but people did use certain methods to clean their teeth and freshen their breath. Sage leaves were used for rubbing on the teeth and gums for their cleansing properties. Chew sticks, thin twigs with frayed ends, were used much like we use toothbrushes today. Despite the strange and sometimes harmful nature of these practices, they reflect an understanding of the importance of personal cleanliness and its social implications. Beauty and hygiene were seen as two sides of the same coin, both crucial for societal acceptance and personal well-being. This Hovedioic approach to hygiene, encompassing both physical cleanliness and aesthetic appearance, underscores how societal norms and values shape our understanding and practices of hygiene. Even if the specifics of these practices have changed over time, the underlying principles, the importance of personal care and cleanliness, remain relevant to this day. These unusual beauty routines of the Middle Ages highlight the timeless and universal human pursuit of beauty and cleanliness.